the lottery winners, oh my gosh, it's like the worst thing that could happen to you in your life is to win a lottery if you don't know how to handle money. You can imagine one day having all these relationships where you're the regular guy or regular woman, and the next day all this money shows up and everybody knows about it. What a nightmare.
Welcome to the Break Free Podcast with your host, David Mancilla. Today we have with us Gary Klaben. Hello, Gary. How are you, brother?
I'm great, David. I'm doing really well. Hopefully you the same.
Yes. It's been great because I haven't been doing podcasts for about 4 weeks. I'm on a medical trip with my wife here from where I'm from in Guatemala, and procedures went great. My wife is recovering. I'm super happy. And I'm actually glad to get back at giving and providing value for the audience. So
yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that everything came out well. That's wonderful.
Yes. Gary, where do you live and what do you do for a living?
So I live in Maryland, and my office is actually in Columbia, Illinois. It's a northern suburb of Chicago, and in Naples, Florida. And I'm in the wealth management space, although that area is quite vast in how the services are held. But I've been in this area for 35 years.
35 years.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And is that the only thing that you do, or do you have other businesses?
So I have other businesses that primarily focus on helping, I'll say the rank and file, the normal person out there who doesn't have any money, get financially well through a variety of different ways. We've done that over the years. Primarily, that's known as financial wellness at the corporate level, where they have programs out there for that purpose. So we do a lot of different stuff. Primarily, from my standpoint, it's video focused. So short videos on many different money areas to help those folks make good, smart decisions about their money.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like if you look, the show is called Break Free, and one of the big factors about living life on your own terms is being able to be financially independent. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very important.
And what I can't believe is that you go through school, through high school, and even most university courses, they don't teach you how to manage a budget or how to invest or how the economy works, how the debt economy works, I mean, it blows my mind because then you're in your late 30s, early 40s, and you have nothing to show for because nobody has taught you what to do. And this is why I have this podcast.
Yeah, it's people pick up habits, and the habits are picking up from others who have not good money habits. And so they pick up those same habits. And, once they get ingrained in them, it's hard for them to change. It's hard for them to make a difference. So it's too bad that back in this country anyway, up through the 60s and even into early 70s, they did have some basic courses in high school on how to balance a checkbook and about the economics and a lot of other types of stuff like that. But that's kind of all gone by the wayside.
It's crazy. So what got you into your main business?
So, my whole story very quickly, you want to know this, the Simon Sinek, why, why? So yes. I'll give that because that's important for people to know. So when I was 8 years old, sitting at the dinner table with my 9 siblings, my mom and dad, on a Thursday night, my mom said, your dad just got paid. He gets paid every other Thursday. All the money is spent. There's nothing left. And of course, as a kid, you're like, whoa, what happens if we need money? So I begged my mom to have a paper route, and she allowed me, and I got permission to have a paper route at age 11. And I started bringing in $20 a week, and I felt really, really good because I was helping my family augment cash flow. And I just felt really good about that. Because of our money situation, and also because I want to serve my country, I got an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point, and went in, graduated, became an infantry officer, spent 5 years, wonderful years in the military, ending up at the 82nd Airborne Division. And when I got out, I went into corporate America for about a year, but I didn't fit. I was just out of place. It didn't work. And then I realized I just don't, this is not for me. And a gentleman approached me and said, well, you might like financial planning. So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead into that because what could I do? I went back to my 8-year-old self. I can help people, lots of people with money. And that makes me feel really good because all I like doing is getting up every day, jumping on a bed and helping one person with one money problem. And that makes a difference. And I've been doing that for 35 years and I'll keep doing that for the rest of my life.
That's beautiful. So you were 8, you were having a financial situation with your parents. At age 11, you were able to add value economically, right, to the household.
Absolutely, and I was saving a lot of money, and they were using it for a lot of discretionary things that they would not have been able to do. So I was very happy I was able to help my family out.
Incredible. How it's interesting. So I did 2 years military training when I was a kid too. How did you get into West Point, and what made you to go there? That was one of the schools that I admired the most when I was in military school. It's like, oh my God, the people that get to go to West Point, they are it.
So my cross-country coach, his son was going there, and it wasn't that far from where I lived. I lived in Syracuse, New York, and it was down near New York City. So it was only a 4-hour drive, and he took me down there one weekend when I was a sophomore in high school, and I just fell in love with the place, and then realized it was a full 4-year scholarship. I didn't have to come up with any money for that, and got a phenomenal Ivy League education and a great time to serve in the country and lead troops. I just thought the whole thing was absolutely wonderful. You have to get an appointment from a congressman or a senator at that time, still the same today. So, it is difficult. You have to have good grades. You have to have overall, good in athletics and leadership and grades to be able to get into the academy. So yeah, they are select and difficult. And I'm proud to say my daughter and my son both are West Point graduates, and so is my son-in-law. So my wife is not, but she actually went through ROTC at Old Dominion University. So we've got a military family.
That's beautiful. So you graduate as an official, right?
Pardon me?
When you go to West Point, you become an official, right?
You become an officer in the United States Army.
Yeah, an officer, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then you were deployed. So by the way, so I understand in the military, you have different paths, right? Like
sure,
you
yes.
go to Navy or to the Army or to the Air Force.
This is Army. You go into the Army. And in particular, I was an infantry officer. That's those folks that are the ground troops, the ones that make things happen on the ground. It's the one that most people think is the last one you want to be because they have the highest mortality rate. But it's where everything happens, in my view. So it was, I really enjoyed it. I had some really great experiences while I was in, and I fortunately didn't have to go to war. I wasn't in any combat at any time, so that was good.
That's wonderful. So you stayed for 5 years after graduation?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that was a requirement as well.
Right. So also, while you graduated, you also got a university degree, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's a 4-year general engineering degree that we all got, a bachelor's degree. West Point's considered one of the top universities in the United States. It's a very prestigious university.
It's interesting because most entrepreneurs that I talk to in this podcast, discipline is the #1 differentiator between them and the rest of the people that don't make it in business.
Yeah, being consistent and doing the things successful people do to make happen versus those that unsuccessful people don't do. There is a pattern to that of how that goes along. I see that all the time, and I've always been wired that way. So over time, more successes take place. That's just what happens.
Right. But it's that thing I remember, the very first thing that I was taught what to do is how to make my bed.
Yeah.
And so to this day, I cannot leave the house without making my bed. Nobody's allowed to make my bed. I do. Okay. But it was back from 40 years ago in military training, right? And it's actually has changed my life because like having the discipline of doing what you have to do, whether you wanted to do it or not, and just know that this is what you have to do, this is what gives you freedom at the end.
Yeah, I've been running for 50 years this year. So I got up this morning at 4:30 and I went out and ran. I've been running pretty much every day. I take 1 day off a week for 50 years. That's very unusual.
Incredible. That's amazing. So from there, you did your 5 years, and then what job did you get in corporate?
So I got a job as a project manager in the computer department doing computer programming applications for a company called Unical, which is Union Oil. And like I said, within about 4 months of being there, I realized I was coming in earlier, leaving later, doing stuff that I thought should be done and stepping on other people's toes because that's not your job. And because I saw where something needed to be done. And then I said, I'm the odd person here because everybody else seems to like this 9 to 5 thing where they they got this job and they do what they're told. And I'm like doing things beyond what I'm being told. I'm not doing what I'm told. I'm coming in at different times. I'm coming early, staying late. I go, I don't belong here. So I got to go somewhere else and do my own thing. That's kind of, it was only a year, because after a year, I went to become a financial planner, actually turned out to be working for a general agency for an insurance company, which is a pretty common entry point back then in the mid 80s to come into the industry. And then I realized right away that, okay, they really just want you to sell insurance for every problem that meets every solution. I said, that doesn't work. So eventually I ended up at the company that I'm at right now, that I'm owner of, Coyle Financial Counsel. And I had a mentor there who's, quite senior to me. And he taught me and his son and my partner how to be very good at wealth management. And we really learned a lot in 3 years from a master, somebody who had been doing it for 35 years. And we're now doing that with our advisors, is passing along our wisdom and knowledge to them as well, to become very good at our craft. And I absolutely love doing this, because I'm helping somebody with a money situation every single day. And I really love doing that. It's just who I am. I can't not do that. It's just part of me. And so it's nice to know at some point, and I didn't fully realize this about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that this is exactly what I was meant to do: help people address any money issue. And quite frankly, the most difficult part of this is the non-financial part. It's not the money part. The money part is actually pretty simple. Once you learn the rules, the regs, how things operate, how you manage money, taxation, that's actually not that hard. Getting people to change their mindset, getting them to embrace who they are related to their money, how it's going to affect their children, how it's going to affect their community and other things they're doing, that takes a whole different level of wisdom and coaching, because it's really coaching. So when I'm helping my advisors understand their position, I said, you're a financial coach. You are coaching people and teaching them tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is like learning how to ride a bike or to play an instrument. You can read about this stuff all day. That's explicit knowledge. But until you actually do it and learn it, you don't know what you're doing. And so tacit knowledge is what we do. We help people, no matter who they are, think about their money in a way that's beneficial to them and their family and where they want to go, and make it work for them, not just go out and try to get better returns or going out and reducing taxes. So we do all that. But at the end of the day, for most people, they grow these estates and they go, well, what's this all about? I got all this money that I was running after, and then they don't know what they want to do next. They're kind of standing around. They're kind of trying to understand, all I did was try to get money. Now I got money and it doesn't make a difference to me. In fact, I feel like I want to get rid of it all, because it's complicating their life and making things more difficult for them. Strange as that sounds, that's not unusual. So we saw that very early on and said, well, if I'm them and I'm going to help them, I'm going to help them address money as part of their life as they go along, so that by the time they get to, they're a grandma or grandpa or whatever, they're really good at it, and they can then pass that along to their children and grandchildren. And so the money goes from prudent hands to prudent hands to prudent hands, and it doesn't destroy families. And I was really very much against that. Something that really bothers me very deeply when I see money destroying families. I don't want that happening on my watch with any of my clients whatsoever.
It's important what you mentioned, because if you do your job well, you can actually leave a legacy. And if you teach the next generation how to manage that, they can increase it and leave it and keep increasing it, right?
Yeah. There's a thing, we have in our country a lot, and you probably heard this, is, teach a man to fish, don't just give him a fish, because once you, and I say it's coaching somebody, because it's not teaching, because coaches are really good at taking the raw material in front of them, whoever that is, and helping them go to where they want to go. In other words, helping pull them along rather than pushing knowledge on them, pushing ideas on them, pushing the way they want them to do things. Every one of my clients is different. Every single family is different. When we first meet a new prospective client, we had one the other day, we tell them we have a 20 to 60 year time frame we look at, and that throws some people. Why 60 years? Well, because the money's going to pass through 3 generations and on And every generation's got to deal with the same issues you're dealing with. So the earlier you can get them to understand how this works, the better that money will transfer, and the better they will be with that money, and the better their family will be, the better their society will be, the better everybody else will be, because they won't become slaves to this money and cause all sorts of problems. They'll become masters to it and really help employ it to support what is important to that family. That is the reason I do what I do. I just love when I see people make that transition over time. It usually takes a decade for most folks, sometimes longer, because, it took them 30, 40, 50 years to get where they are to undo that. Kind of like strategic coach, not to give a plug here, but, when I got into strategic coach, and I'm one of Dan Sullivan's coaches, I got asked yesterday when I was coaching a group, well, how long did it take you to get this whole entrepreneurial time system together? I said about 7 or 8 years. They go, oh my gosh. Well, look, I messed it up for 30 years. I mean, it takes a while. But I'm willing to make the change. I've got the time. It's worth doing all that. So we make the commitment in our company to be with them for many years to make sure that their money is doing what they want it to do, and it's not driving them to make bad decisions relative to their life. That financial coaching is a rare commodity. It's a rare thing to see out in the industry, because the industry basically says, hey, do really good money management. All the rest of the stuff is okay, but just do that, and you're good.
And it's so important, because the wrong advice can also break you, right? And like it happened to me, I was saving for 20 years in our version of an IRA. I mean, I live in Canada, and we just broke even with inflation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I never paid attention, right? I just completely delegated it without knowing how the common economy worked myself.
Sure.
I just focused on my business and growing my business. And then I realized, I actually opened my eyes in 2016. I watched a documentary on Netflix about the economy. And I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I know how to make money through my business, how to add value, but I don't know how to manage my money. So then in 2017, I said, this is the time that I'm going to take it on. So I took a year-long course and switched it around. And last year I did 20%. Yeah. Well, everybody that had 2 centimeters of intelligence did 20% last year,
Yeah. Well, but you could have gotten scared, got out and lost 20%. So, yes. There's a lot of things happen along the way. The primrose path to where, is filled with a lot of good intentions, not necessarily execution. Yeah. So, even though the markets have done well in the last 2 years, not everybody has actually participated because they got scared, or somebody told them that, to go buy gold because that's the only thing that's going to, be worth anything, or some other, or just buy cryptocurrencies, although that might have worked better possibly. But, but they get crazy schemes and things that are not normal types of investments, and they don't know that that's not normal. They don't know that that's taking bigger risks, when you do stuff like that. And again, those things we make sure clients don't do. And like I said, that is not really terribly difficult once, you get educated. And I got educated early on. I got my 2 certifications, a chartered financial consultant and a chartered life underwriter. Those are about 13 3-credit hour courses. Most people think about the CFP, and that's about 5 or 6. So you get an idea, it's a few more. But then I said, if I'm really going to be good at my craft, I'm going to get a master's of science in financial services. So I got a master's degree in this field, specifically everything related to this field. And that's helped tremendously, because when I see things and I'm working with stuff, I have a good familiarization with all areas where money touches, be it estates or tax or business planning or risk management, investment management, doesn't matter, family management. We do a lot of estate settlements because our clients pass away, and we help that money go from mom and dad to the children. We work with the attorneys and accountants, and we do a lot of the work along those lines, because that's just part of life that happens. And we knew we needed to be involved in that part of that process.
Just about that, how many people don't even think about that, right? Because if you're young, like say you're in your 40s, 50s, you're like, oh, I still have 40 years, and you never go see a lawyer, you never go see a financial consultant, and then all of a sudden they pass away. And the trouble that the family get into trying to get back the money from the state,
Yeah, it's fraught with a lot of minds, and it's just because it's a very, very complex system when you look at all that stuff together. And again, most folks in our space will primarily look at the investment management stay there. The stuff I'm talking about takes decades to learn. It takes a lot of expertise, and it's a lot of work, and you got to get paid for it. And we charge fees for that just separately than assets under management fees. And it's something we started working on back in, believe it or not, 1988, and then kept changing and morphing over time. And actually, I have a proprietary patented business process to be able to deliver all of that seamlessly, because I realized that the amount of time and effort was phenomenal. And if we couldn't get it very effective and down to a limited amount of time, it was going to be way too expensive for people to afford. So we spent decades working on this solution, and it was all driven. And it actually was one day it happened to me. I was in 1991. I was working on a family estate. We had all the documents signed. And the moment those documents were signed, if the parents had died that day, there had been $2 million less in federal estate taxes, $2 million less. So we're basically saving their estate legitimately by doing a bunch of stuff, legitimately, $2 million. When I was driving home, and I got this really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I mean, just a horrible feeling. And I thought, gosh, is it my kids, my wife? What's bothering me? I couldn't figure out what was bothering me. And it just came to me in a flash. And here's what came to me. I'd met the two children who were my age at that meeting who were going to get all this money. And I felt like they knew nothing about money. I felt like I just threw another $1 million on a horrible fire that was going to occur somewhere in the future, where they'd be completely unable to handle these dollars and would destroy them even faster than it was going to destroy them with giving more taxes to the government. I wanted to turn my car around, go back to the office, and tear up all the documents, because I felt like I had just been a party to a crime.
Right.
And that day, that was 1991, I said, I can't do this normal thing of helping people manage money, saving them in taxes, and ignoring the results of that. I can't do that anymore. I cannot go to work and do that anymore. I've got to figure out how to address these issues, generational issues, now, and do it. And that started the journey. It was 30 years to set up our company so that we could walk them from birth to death and all the stuff that goes in between, but making sure that the thread of money was basically what they controlled and helped support them, help them to do the things that they love doing, the purposes in their life, but it wouldn't destroy families. A lot of families get destroyed with drugs. They get destroyed with all sorts of abuses because there's so much money. They don't know what to do with it, and they get caught up in bad situations because they have so much money. And they can't.
They get split, right? Because then you have resentment and anger, and people, say, oh, I should have this and you should have that. And horrible, right?
Yeah, and actually, I have not taken on lottery winners, because the lottery winners, oh my gosh, it's like the worst thing that could happen to you in your life is to win a lottery if you don't know how to handle money. Mm-hmm. There have been cases where I've seen in the US where a wealthy business owner won the lottery, nothing changed. And people, well, how did that happen? Well, they had money. They learned how to deal with money a long time before a whole bunch of other money came in. So when a whole bunch of other money came in, they already had all the skill sets, all the habits in place that could handle a lot of money. And people don't get that. Well, wait a minute, I can handle money. I don't know. You know how to spend money. you know how to overspend money. But here's the kind of thing that happens, and a wealthy business owner probably has been through this. Somebody finds out you had a lot of money. They come up to you and say, I want to borrow money from you because I've got an idea here. Can you give me money? You're rich. I'll give you a real simple one. And I watch this destroy this lady, these kinds of things. One day she has no money. The next day she does. And it wasn't much. It was a lot of money, $6 million, but not the way some of these are. She's in a restaurant with her friends. They all stand up and leave, her sitting there. And when one of them's leaving, going, oh, well, you're going to pick up the bill. Of course, you're a millionaire. Now, the day before, she was like everybody else. Now, you got to think, how does somebody handle that psychological blow that now you're being treated like, I don't know, an entitlement, like the government, where everybody's entitled to all your money without everybody even asking or saying anything. Just happens. She was also had picked the numbers. She had a fiance and she picked her birth date, his birth date, the day they met, whatever. That's how she won it. She calls him up all excited when she wins. And he said, well, half that money's mine. First response, half that money's mine. Because those were half my numbers. So that's half money's mine. He didn't say, congratulations. He didn't say that. Obviously, she never got married. I just gave you two examples. You can imagine one day having all these relationships where you're the regular guy or regular woman. And the next day, all this money shows up and everybody knows about it. What a nightmare. And people think, oh, it's great. I can do anything I want. Well, yes, but pretty much if you don't know how to handle somebody coming at you that way, if you haven't experienced being a wealthy person in the eyes of everybody else and how people throw comments at you and different things, and you haven't learned how to deal with that, it's a massive amount of stuff happening all at the same time. And so it's a sudden wealth syndrome that happens in our country anyway. And I'm sure it happens in many other places. In fact, in Thailand, one of the billionaires there said their terminology is rice paddies to rice paddies in 3 generations, meaning the wealth is grown. The first generation, second generation is scared and they freeze it. The third generation goes, what the heck? And they spend it all and they're back in the rice paddies. United States, we call it shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It's a big problem and it's pretty much 90%. The numbers are 90%. So I knew all this going in. I had studied all this and I went, so I want to make this happen worse for my clients' families. The people they love the most, their children and their grandchildren, are actually going to be worse off when they get all the sudden wealth and don't know what to do. I'm not going to do that. And that's a long way around it, but it really drives me quite a bit when I'm dealing with families of how I try to help treat them and work with them.
I went to a financial conference last year, and this guy, it was about multi-generational wealth. And this guy showed up. His name is Luca Polucci. And you can trace his wealth from the 1500s.
Oh, wow.
His family actually built the center of London, England. And this guy is like 80 years old. He shows up and he says, the person interviewing him asked him, how was the secret of keeping this wealth? Because they are multi-billionaires, right? And he said, well, number one, the person that is controlling the family wealth chooses the next in kind.
Yeah, right.
And the number one thing that you need to know is that it's not your money, it's your family's money. It's just your responsibility to keep it and grow it and teach the next one how to handle business. That's
very astute. I always say it's being prudent with what's been given to you and to then grow it effectively the way you can do that. So when we look at going from one generation to the next, one of the things we got to get the wealth builders generally to see is, hey, your children are not going to do it the same way you did. Everything's changed. You think they built their wealth during the 70s and 80s and 90s. Well, wealth is being built differently now with the internet age. And there's different ways to do that. And the next generation will be different again. And so selecting the ones who are good, have good money mindsets, good way of dealing with wealth, number one. Number two, giving them the leadership torch early and allowing them to stretch their legs while they're still under your house, if you want to call it your money house anyway. And then once the transition takes place, it's very seamless and then they're off and they're doing the same thing. We've seen 2 major families in the United States do that well, the Rockefellers and the Acoa families. And there's some others, but those are the 2 most well-known ones that actually are into their, probably 6th generation now, 6th or 7th. Because again, newer, obviously, wealth didn't start really in this country until the late 1800s. And so those are the first families that basically had started that wealth building. But the majority of the other families that got destroyed. I mean, that's what happened. So we know that this is a sickness or an illness because of the way it's treated. And that gentleman was absolutely right about just a few key elements on it. And so we know that. And so we help them through that. And you get families where they've got 3 children, they go, one's just never going to get it. The other one's okay. And the one really gets it. So that's the one that ends up running that and helping the other 2 make it through. And it doesn't matter. It's just, you're the one. And if you're the one, then that's the deal. And then hopefully we got another one next generation. If we have more than one, that's great. We only need one. And quite frankly, if it's done well, the other 2 get it, they understand it, they're taken care of, they're fine. And they accept that because that's just the way leadership torches change. That's just the way families operate. Not everybody's going to be great at everything. And this particular family member is good with wealth, and the other one may be good in different areas. But in this particular area, that 80-year-old gentleman knows this is the one, and pass it on to that one.
It's incredible. Another syndrome that I see often, especially with entrepreneurs that haven't had anything before, is that as soon as they know how to make a lot of money, but they don't know how to keep it, because the knowledge that gets you there doesn't keep you there.
No.
Right? And they start spending in liabilities instead of investing in assets, right?
You know what's interesting? It's interesting, David. And I was taught this early on, and it threw me because I was, 29 years old. And my mentor, Ed, said a couple things, but two things stick out. One, he said, 95% of the people walking that door when we're meeting in person are in a fear state. Okay, that doesn't sound right to me. And he said, the fear state is grounded in one of two things. They're either going to afraid they're going to lose what they got, or they're afraid they're not going to get what they want. And because of that, and there's a lot of ignorance around that, obviously, we have to help them get through that fear stage. He said 95%. Number two, pretty much anybody who walks in the door has made money somewhere else, doesn't matter where else, absolutely does not understand how to make money in what we do. And you can pretty much ignore everything they say about money, making money. I'm saying this nicely. And we have to help set the agenda from the standpoint of helping them understand how to deal with money. But it's kind of like in our country, and you might know about this gentleman, but Michael Jordan, phenomenal basketball player. And he decided after his basketball career was over that he was going to become a phenomenal baseball player. Okay. And I got to tell you, there was only one person in the world that thought that Michael Jordan was going to be a phenomenal baseball player. That was Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Everybody else, all the baseball players went, so what part of playing basketball translate to playing professional baseball? Because there's certain things that are there, but we're talking about some really high level tacit knowledge here, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny that everybody knew that, but he didn't know that. And that's the point about money. You can make a lot of money, but when it comes to doing your money, this is for me too, you're blind. You're blind to how to take that money further. It's because we have a blind spot when it's our money and we're connected to our money. And sometimes clients say, well, why do I need you? I said, the only reason you need me because I'm not you. I said, at a basic level, that's why, because I'm not you. Yeah. And you are too connected to your money in many different ways. And it's hard for you to emotionally disconnect, see the things very clearly, even the smartest people, and make really good decisions about that. That's why I've got the profession I'm in, and what I do is because I'm not you.
Exactly. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you are the first person that I know that in this business that you have everything in one shop. It must be wonderful for your clients to come and know that you have everything handled. Because usually you have to go to this place and that place.
You're right. You got it exactly right. Our business is really siloed. And that was one of the things I identified. That's where I got the business process. It's one thing I identified up front. I go, these people have wealth. They're really good decision makers. And that's why they have wealth. They're good decision makers. The problem is they don't have the facts when they go to make a decision about money. So they're making gut decisions with incomplete knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's crazy. We have all this capacity digitally. This started years ago because I started working on this digitally in 1999. And by 2006, this was all available. I said, well, we can get their tax returns. We can get their legal documents. We can get all of their statements from all of their institutions, because it doesn't have to be just with us. We can get all of it. And the goal was, David, and when we meet this goal, we want to be able to answer, this is the most difficult service situation in my business. Phone rings. Hi, Mrs. McGillicuddy, how are you? And then immediately she gives me the agenda, right? So I find out right now. Now, I would like to answer her question right now. So the standard was phone call, boom, in 30 to 60 seconds, you, every team member in our team, have to be able to answer any detailed question on any money matter in any area in 30 to 60 seconds, 95% of the time.
Wow.
So we were able to do that and still do that by tying all the stuff together. Because that's what people want. They want to be able to go think something they want to do. Now, I'm giving you something that might be simple. Many times those calls come in, they're complex. They're not super simple. But again, you have all this information and you can rapidly get back to them and have a conversation, have thinking about their thinking, about their money and whatever the relationship is, so they can make a decision in a timely manner. Because what I found was I was walking into client situations where they had made a bad money decision because basically the industry taught them to. They call their accountant, hey, I need my numbers, figure out what I'm doing this year tax-wise. Well, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. Okay. Call the attorney. Hey, what kind of legal document I need? I'm thinking of buying this house and I don't know if the accountant's getting the numbers together and I got to go talk to my broker next. Hey, broker, do I have enough money for a down payment? And I want to do this and everything else. Hey, you got to talk to my insurance guy because I got to get coverage on it. Now business owners and people are busy. This is not fun. This is really bad. And what happens is, each time they go, they get more questions without answers and more. So what do? They go, and they get a bunch of bills. So they get through this thing and they got all these bills. They didn't get any clarity. And the thing they thought they should have done up front, they did anyway. And they thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah. So
what the industry taught them is just go from your gut and we'll fix it later. Hopefully the damages won't be too bad. My approach was, that's BS. We have the capacity to have the information so they can make a good decision up front and not cause problems. Because they got to have ownership a certain way. It's got to be taxed a certain way. There's certain risks associated with it. Family members are involved, et cetera. So there's lots of elements. And we had all that. We have all those elements. So we're able to help them walk them through. We don't make the decision for them. We give them the information, help them think about how to make the decision. They're great decision makers. They make a great decision. On to the next.
And you you get rid of the broken phone, right? Like everybody's, send me this paper, that paper, and then it's not my fault, it's your lawyer's fault, and then the accountant says no, and then the broker says I cannot get you the loan.
And the problem is that it's so enormous a task that it just doesn't get done, and people skip corners and everything else. And we got that, and I because I had a computer background, I said no, these programs are able to collect all this data. Just nobody's doing it. That's all. Mm-hmm. It's not a matter of, some magical thing we did. We just used off-the-shelf software and made it talk to each other easily and just gave it access. I'm looking at 3 screens, so I can bring up 3 different things at the same time. And you know how it is. Your eyes scan over and visually cortex picks up things very rapidly. You have to have that. And then you're able to then have a decent conversation with your client about something and to be able to help them get to that solution. But the little things are faster too. The little calls, just the little things they want done, we do 5 or 10 times faster in most firms because we have all the data. And the interesting part is, David, I know you'll find this funny, but clients will call us and they will ask us to look at the tax return that their accountant filed, that the accountant has, and we'll get the information quicker than their accounting firm can. Same with their legal documents many times. And it's because we've really honed it down and gotten access to data very easy and rapidly. It's not because we're trying to, one up anybody. We just want to make sure we've got the information so we can help solve any of the issues that come up. Not that we do it directly, but we can get them to make their decision and get it executed.
Fantastic. Yeah. Gary, when you started the business, I know, I remember the hardest part was getting clients. Not only clients, but getting good clients.
Yes.
How did you evolve that process? Because that's a tough one.
That was tough. Ed put me on the street and we had the Candygram program. This is a funny one. There's a thing called the RISA Red Book. It's still around, and it's a book that has all of the qualified return plans for all businesses in it. You can look at it, you get it by zip code, and you can see John Smith's barbershop has $1 million in it. Joe Blow's repair shop has $4 million in it. And it tells you how many people in the plan and so forth. And you can kind of figure that 80 or 90% of the money is the owner. So we knew, hey, at least this guy's got a lot of money. And I went out and co-canvassed. I actually got two candies and a little thing from Fannie Mae with a brochure. And I went in to the desk, usually the secretary or whoever is there. And I said, hey, can you get this to David Mansella? And it was expensive brochure we had. It was about money management, but it starts somewhere on that. And they look at you funny, like, yeah, we don't take solicitors and all that. And I said, for your troubles, here's some candy, so I handed them the two candies. And the funny part is I went and did a couple thousand of those, probably 1,500 over a year and a half. And 10 of my, it's strangest thing, this is the worst way to market. 10 of my largest clients came from that.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, a couple of them were just so like, that was pretty cool marketing. Like, bring that guy in here, I remember they go, who came up with that? I said, well, me and Ed, and we thought, hey, we'll try this and see, it's unique and see what happens. But I would have to, on the weekends, I would have to go get my map book, and I'd have to go and map all the addresses, and I had to get all the candies, and I'd have to drive around and drop them all off. Then I told them I'm coming back in a week to pick it up, and I'd come back a week later, like I said, and they'd have it for me. And I said, oh, no, David's not interested. He's got somebody to go. I said, thank you very much, ma'am. And I'd walk back out.
Crazy.
But generally, we get most of our clients from referrals from our current clients and from other advisors, accountants.
You're established now, right?
Yeah, but it was just, I thought you'd like that story. It was interesting way we call them candygrams, kind of.
Well, see, this is the thing, and I'm pretty sure you know this, but in 2 years, 75% of businesses go out.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or even more than that. And within 10 years, it's only like 2% that are still standing.
Wow, my first 5 years, I took no vacation. I went into debt, $60,000. At one point it was just unbelievably bad, and I made it through, and and then about 20 years later, I became an instant success.
I know, and this is what I want to ingrain in my audience, and this is for people that are thinking about opening up their own business. I haven't done anything harder than this, and I've been in business for 16 years. This year is year 16 for me. And yes, it's a lot easier now, but it's still hard.
Oh, it's still never.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because people ask, going through West Point and going through Ranger School and some of these very, very difficult courses, they say, well, what's the comparison? I said, this is much harder. There's much more mental wear and tear. There's long periods of disappointments, failures and so forth. It's just, you've got to have the visceral, you have to have the gut to stick in there and make it through. And you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe in what you're doing, and you got to believe that what you do matters, and that others believe it matters, and they'll see that and they'll buy that, and you'll be able to execute that. And that's just, that's just the way it is. And no business is easy. People think it is. Oh my gosh, it's not easy. But I knew I was wired this way. I was wired as an entrepreneur, and I had to do this. I couldn't work for anybody else. And I'm completely unemployable. If somebody was crazy enough to hire me and I were to do it, I'd be fired by 10 o'clock in the morning for having, not following orders and not doing things people said and going off on my own. And,
It's funny that you say that, because I spent over 10 years in corporate. So I know exactly what you were talking about at the beginning. And then when I finally broke through, that's why it's called the Breakthrough Podcast, because I finally had enough enthusiasm and I set myself in a way that I could actually do this. But I was paralyzed, right?
Yeah.
And then the back of my head was always, I can always get a job. That was my plan B.
Sure.
If this fails, I can always go back and get a job. And that lasted for about 4 years. And then I'm like, I can never get a job anymore. I can just do this, and it's like I'm unemployable now.
But the interesting part, Ed said to me and to his son, I'm going to make it so that in 3 years' time, if I just drop you anywhere in the country, you'll be able to start the business, grow the business, and be successful no matter where I am, because you'll have all the things internally to know what it takes to grow and run a business. And he was absolutely right. So I think that from that standpoint, it could all be taken away, but I know how to run a business. I know how to start a business. I know what it's about. And so, hey, if the unfortunate happens for some reason, that's okay. You can't take that away. Can't take that away from me. And I certainly wouldn't be looking for a job because I know that that's a non-starter. It just doesn't work.
And going back to having a support group, like for me, strategic coach, which is where you and I belong to, is so important, because running a business is so hard that when you sit around with people like you, just having that conversation, just being able to just share ideas and know that we are in the same game together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You find out the scars of the journey every single entrepreneur has been through over time as you get to know different people. And you kind of go, yeah, been there, different, but been there. Yeah. One of the things I know, and people might say, well, that doesn't sound like you. Well, I said, everybody has stolen money from me, everybody. And I said, there isn't any category of my life where somebody hasn't stolen money from me. I mean, it sounds bad, but I go, that's just the way it is. You do what you need to do, but if you start focusing on those bad things, you will never get anywhere. And, it was never a lot of money, but it was enough to hurt. It was enough to make, a lot of painful situations with people and so forth. But, it's interesting where here you are, and you've got folks who, employees steal money from you, clients steal money from you, vendors steal money from you, family members steal money from you, big or small or whatever. And you go, not me, it's them, I mean, you have to deal with it. And it just comes to the territory when you have gathered a lot of wealth. It's just, you become a target, on that. And it's not that you weren't aware and didn't set yourself up right and have all the things in place. You do, but still it doesn't matter. But it's just part of being an entrepreneur. I mean, that's what happens.
And it makes you stronger, right? Like I have
absolutely. Yeah.
What you said, it has happened to me in my life. And the first time that happened to me was in 2012. And oh my God, I wanted to kill the guy, right? A client stole a lot of money from me. And then he wanted to steal my team. And I'm like, and it's funny because now 5 years later, I had something happen to me that is 5 times worse, but it didn't bother me anymore. Because I was a different person, right?
And you can't be looking, behind you constantly and see what's going on. My view is that you continue to provide value to people, continue to do what you're doing, and these other nefarious characters show up because they show up, and you put protection in place and keep the damage as low as possible. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's nothing good or bad. It's life. It comes with the territory.
Beautiful, Gary. Thank you so much for your time, brother. One last question before I let you go, because I want to respect your time. If you had access to a billboard on the busiest highway on earth, what will you write in it and why?
Oh, it's funny. You're making me go back to my yearbook. What did I say? Remember me not by but what is written but what you saw.
Not by what is written, but what you saw.
Yeah, it's not exactly right, but yeah. But my point is that I've seen so many wonderful write-ups and glorious write-ups about people and everything else, and sometimes if they're really over the top, my hair back my neck stands up and goes, there's something not going on there. I've always been of the nature, and it's not good from a marketing standpoint, is look, watch me, see what I do. That's who I am. I can write all the sorts of things about myself. That means nothing. What means something is, what did you do? What did you execute? Who did you help? Who did you hurt? Who did you help along the way? That's what defines you. And that's, I think I put in there, remember me for what you saw, not what you heard or what you wrote, I guess I think is what was written. And it's kind of like that to me, doing this podcast, I'm trying to give you some stories and things that, hey, this is what happens. This is real life. This is what goes on. I love it. It's great. It's fun. But it's got to be real. It can't be just written words on a billboard that don't mean anything.
Exactly. And it's beautiful. And thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I usually ask this question, and the knowledge that I get is so profound. And it's quick. It's the 80-20, right?
Yeah. That is good. I had no idea what you were going to ask me, but I remember, and I go, yeah. It's like being a military guy, I want to be buried in next to soldiers in a cemetery somewhere. And well, how? I said, in a plain pine box. And I said, why? Because I'm no different. I'm no better or worse than any human being that's walked this planet. And I want to make sure I'm put in my right position when I pass. I said, that's the deal. That's my deal anyway.
You know, this whole life experiment, you and I chose the entrepreneurial way. That doesn't mean that the employment way is different or easier or harder. But for me, the way I think about it is any other alternative will be boring.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd rather have tremendous trouble and have to stretch myself out and become a better person every week than having to do the same thing to collect a paycheck and become bored about it. And that's what happened to me when I was in corporate. And this is not for everybody, but every 2 years I was switching jobs because I was getting bored.
Yeah. You've got those common characteristics, and it goes back to, we really wanted the freedoms to be able to pass or fail, be who we are, and make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so it's always wonderful when you see people come up and you've changed their lives, and they tell you, not that you were expecting the applause, that was nothing to do with it, but then you walk away saying, I'm really happy I did that. I'm really happy I met them. I'm really happy I spent all the time working with them because it's made a difference in their life. And that's all I want to do. I just want to make a little tiny little dent in the universe, Steve Jobs. That's it. Not more than that. I'll try to do this wherever I can. And that's it.
It's wonderful. Gary, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to, hire a company for services, financial services.
So you can get hold of me at G Klaben, last name's Klaben, at Coyle Financial, it's Coyle financial.com. And if you look me up, I've got a lot of videos out there, so it's easy to find me, pretty easy to find me from that standpoint.
Brother, thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you, David. I love being on here. This is great. Wonderful.
Blessings. And on behalf of my audience, being myself the first one that learned from you, thank you so much. You're a wonderful person. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Cheers.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.